like yesterday's show, we're going to open up the draft, allowing analysts to pick any player from any eligible round. So round 9 players can be selected in round 10, 11 players can be selected. We can do deep sleepers early, anything you guys want. Basically, the way we look at this is if we give you a genie, you can unlock any player at ADP, your favorite value. Who would you pick first? So don't feel pigeonholed to taking anybody from any round. But after that slip up in the intro, I'm going to turn it over to Jacob Gibbs, and he's going to be making the first pick of the sleeper draft.
Dan is juiced up. I absolutely love it.
Too juiced up.
Slight Ian on the intro, but then give Ian your first F-bomb ever. That's super
big mistake.
Okay, yeah, it's good to be back. I've been off screen for the last 2, like filling the producer role, and that's been fun. Dan has been absolutely killing it in the hosting role, and I've been really looking forward to this. We got 3 awesome analysts today, so this is going to come as a surprise to nobody who listens to the show or sees me on Twitter. As I look at the board and the available sleepers, and I have a wish to lock in any of these guys in any round, it's clearly Colston Loveland for me. I pretty sure I told Ryan the other day when we did our podcast that I'm comfortable taking Colston Loveland around 7. So that's obviously irresponsible. If I can lock him in around 10, that's a perfect start to my draft. So the case for Colston Loveland is pretty simple. 2 years ago, Ben Johnson made Sam Laporta tight end 1 in fantasy. I think Colston Loveland is a significantly better prospect, and the offense probably isn't going to be as good. Almost definitely isn't going to be as good as that 23 Lions offense, but there are paths to it being good. And there's way more target ambiguity in this offense than the Lions offense had. That Lions offense had a clear target hog in Amon-Ra St. Brown. I don't really see that as we look at the Bears offense. I think Rome Odunze is a capable wide receiver 1, but the way that he's been used and the way they're talking about him as a prototypical X isn't typically the kind of role that leads to a lot of targets or a high target share. It's very hard to demand a high target share with that type of a role when you're perimeter bound. DJ Moore, we've seen it kind of decline with the maybe that's issue with motivation or whatever, but in terms of his route running, all the fantasy points data charting, that kind of stuff, the separation, the target share numbers are going down. So I look at this offense and I see weapons that can threaten defenses and keep them from keying on a rookie tight end. I doubt that that's going to happen. But I also see an offense that doesn't have anybody that's clearly the offense is clearly going to run through this. It could be pretty open-ended. And if Loveland is the player that we think he is, I think he could come in here and demand a much higher target share number than people expect. And we've seen Ben Johnson really facilitate extreme efficiency at the tight end position through the use of play action and pre-snap motion. He's already talked at length, just been raving about Loveland and how he wants to use him in that way. And so if you listen to our per route primer that we did, me and Dan, last week, I went on and on about Loveland. He had the highest target per route run rate in a single season we've ever seen, even higher than Harold Fannin, who blew the previous rate by Trey McBride way out of the water. Loveland's was higher. If you look at the final 2 seasons at Michigan, Loveland's per route data is better than Brock Bowers over his final 2 seasons in a worse offense. He's a really, really good prospect. He can win all over the field. And I think to get him in round 10 is just cheating, because he's clearly the most likely to be the late round hit at tight end this year. He's got opportunity. He's got talent.
I want to see Gibbs's face when Cole Kmet has a 60% route rate in week 1. That will happen.
No.
We'll be completely undeterred. We're playing for the fantasy playoffs, right? I mean, that's when rookie wide receivers and tight ends break out, and that's what we're drafting for here.
Yeah, I love how you gave yourself the first pick, because I think this probably would have been Ryan and I's first pick too.
100%. Yes.
Yeah.
And with that, I'm out. Good to see you guys.
Yeah,
just to be clear, since I was a little bit amped up after an espresso shot during that intro, and I apologize for that to the listeners, but the way we're doing this is the teams will be making a pick. So Jacob and I have made that pick of Loveland behind the scenes, and then one person will be making the case for it. But when you guys go, Graham and Ryan, you guys can both make your case for the player if you like. And just adding a little bit of context to our pick of Colston Loveland. It's a few things that Jacob mentioned on the last show that we didn't get a chance to mention. One thing I really like context-wise is just 7% of his production came on screen, design screens. That's versus 24% for Tyler Warren. So that's just something interesting that I keep in mind, because he's a player who I think reminded me a lot of watching Nico Collins at Michigan, just held back a lot by the quarterback play. So I'm really excited to see if he can get an upgrade in that regard. I'm not totally sold just yet that Caleb Williams will be that right away. But I think, as Jacob says, and you'll see with a lot of our picks today, and I don't know if this is true for you guys, but a lot of our picks are going to be paying off more toward the end of the season in the fantasy playoffs and then down the line. And so that's just how we're drafting it. That's how we draft. We draft for the playoffs and overall breakouts. So I'm excited about this pick, but we'll move on and we'll put Ian on the board. You can go any round, any sleeper you like here. You and Ryan.
I'm just still so rattled by your intro, Dan. I mean, I haven't heard.
I'm still rattled myself. I'm trying to collect myself here.
I was told this was a family show, so
it is supposed to be.
I'll try to get my bearings together. Give me round 12, Jaylen Wright, Dolphins, RB2. Ooh. He's going outside the top 50 running backs on most of these sites. And again, even if you just think that training camp hype for Alexander Mattison is real, or maybe Ollie Gordon, who did have a very good 2023, maybe they do get the short yardage role, if you will. I just think the pure handcuff upside for Wright as Achane's, direct handcuff is enough, okay? He's going beyond guys like Trey Benson, Tyler Algier, who we don't expect to have any standalone value either. I do think Wright has a chance to be that clear-cut RB2. We've also heard that in these, again, Madison hype pieces, and Wright accordingly is my most drafted player of this entire offseason. So, again, just getting him round 12, like this is the part of drafts where I'm going to be taking far more chances on the handcuff running back types than wide receivers who, might have good years, but you're going to have a hard time kind of finding the right week to get them in the lineup in the first place. So Jaylen Wright, I know he didn't exactly pay off last year, but remember they traded up, used that future third round pick in the first place. And guys, most importantly, changed his number from 25 to 5. That's the sort of confidence, that's the sort of aura we need from our late round RB.
I like it. Jaylen Wright was picked in our first day of Sleepers Week, and so it's the second time he's come off the board. Just like to note the sleepers that are being taken more than once among these analysts. We have so many great analysts on the show. I forgot to mention, but these analysts we have today are among the top 10 rankers in Fantasy Pros accuracy, so just keep that in mind. One thing on Wright I wanted to follow up with you about, Ian, because he's a really interesting play for this year. Are you at all worried about them going into the draft and taking a player like Ollie Gordon, just because he's such a different player than I'm used to, like the archetype for that Mike McDaniel offense?
I mean, again, it's possible that the short yardage role, if you will, where they have a timeout and it's 3rd and 1, they want to bring the bigger body out there. But man, I've heard every single draft pundit love every single running back. Okay, Kyle Minajee is apparently the second coming of Barry Sanders in Chicago. All right, I know all these guys had good college careers because freaking every running back that gets drafted has good college careers. You can find me the minute clip of highlights as well. End of the day, what do we see from day 3 rookies? More often than not, very much nothing. So, right, I know he's the boring second-year player who, again, disappointed people waiting for the breakout last year. But we had old man Raheem Mostert actually staying fairly healthy, keeping him on the bench. That Dolphins O-line was a disaster. I really hope some of these injuries aren't catching up to him this year. I understand that's not exactly a thing we can rely on. But for me, again, it's just that price point where the fact that I do think we have that flex with benefits potential with Wright being priced even beyond just the pure handcuffs, more than enough for me to throw out late round dart.
I like it. That's the first pick off the board. Now we're going to go to the fantasy points team. They've been debating what's their favorite sleeper. Hopefully they haven't been stolen. They said they got stolen on Loveland. Obviously, Jacob rigged the draft and gave us the first pick, and that's just how it's going to be. But who do you guys have coming off the board now with your first sleeper pick?
You want alternate shot this, Ryan? You can go first.
Oh. Okay, I don't think you're going to disagree here, Graham. I think we got the mind meld here. I'm sure it's going to be exactly who you would have said. I'm just going to go ahead and lock up Drake Maye in round 12. Oh, nice and easy here. It's really, really simple with Maye. I mean, comes out as a rookie, averages over 35 rushing yards per game just on scrambles. That was more than Jaden Daniels. That's more than basically anyone we've seen over the last 5 years, aside from like one insanely cracked Justin Fields season. Digging into all the data and predictiveness stuff, scramble yards are actually very predictive of designed rushing in the following season. Maye had only 7 designed runs called for him all of last year. We know that was an intentional choice on the part of the coaching staff. Kind of makes sense in a totally lost season, awful offensive line. They didn't want to get him killed. But this is a Patriots team that could actually be somewhat competitive. We have seen Mike Vrabel teams overperform their talent pretty much every single year. They are implied for the same amount of points per game via look-ahead lines as the Dallas Cowboys. So this could be a legitimate offense. All you really need is for Maye to also take a step forward as a passer, and you're looking at top 5 quarterback upside really easy right here in round 12. He's just kind of the default late round quarterback click this year.
Anything else to add on that, Graham?
No, I swear that was going to be mine too.
Yeah.
The only thing to add is, I mean, I just love how the Patriots upgraded this offensive line too. Obviously, Will Campbell coming in, signed veteran tackle Morgan Moses. You know, they got Garrett Bradbury in there at center, coming from Minnesota. It's going to be just a much better team this year, as Ryan alluded to. This is a great year for late round quarterback. There's another quarterback I'm going to talk about, probably not the next pick, but maybe the third or fourth pick that we make. But I think this is a year where you could take Maye like a round early, round 11, round 10. You can pair him with another late round quarterback that has some significant Konami code upside. I'm fully in on Drake Maye.
This is a Drake Maye positive podcast. I said that on yesterday's episode. We're just huge fans, Jacob and I. The film speaks for itself. I am curious to see, just because in the past, this Josh McDaniels system, it's a little bit different, and that goes for the any Earhart Perkins system. It's a little bit different than what he's played in and what a lot of quarterbacks have played in. It takes some time from a passing game standpoint. I could see a little bit of struggles early in the passing game, but I think you guys are onto something when it comes to the design runs, and that's something that McDaniels has always had in his offense. I think that's really valuable for a player like Drake Maye, and just having Travion Henderson in that offense for those design screens, just get the ball into. They didn't really have many playmakers on that offense. Adding him and Kyle Williams to the offense is such a difference for what he can, just what can be created outside of Drake Maye doing it all on his own, which it felt like a lot of. Yeah, Mac Hollins. Bob Douglas has looked great so far in camp. So there's just a lot of upside there. And before we move on, and we're going to take a quick break after this, but I just wanted to get your guys' opinions on this, because quarterback's a really interesting position, both for Superflex and 1QB. As we've gone through this week, a lot of different analysts have picked late round quarterbacks they love. Drake Maye's been picked a few times, JJ McCarthy among others. I think there's also that advantage, though, to taking the elite tier of quarterbacks. How are you guys playing the position? Do you feel confident just, waiting for these quarterbacks and pairing two, like Graham suggested, or are you guys more along the lines of taking that top tier, or do you see like a middle range of quarterbacks that you're interested in?
Yeah, I mean, I have been taking a barbell approach, as I call it, to the QB position, which is very much like if those top 4 elite QBs kind of fall past the higher tiers of running backs and wide receivers I'm into, then I'm pretty happy to take one of the elites. I do think that they're very strong bets this year, particularly like in 10-team leagues or in 12-team like managed redraft leagues that aren't quite as deep. But in some of the deeper leagues in best ball, I do think it's better to wait later. I'm really just trying to stay out of the middle, though, at quarterback.
Okay.
I just don't have much interest in like the Patrick Mahomeses, the Baker Mayfields, those types of guys going in the middle rounds. I really think all the value is either early or late at QB this year.
The reason I asked before, I just wanted to follow up on this real quick. The reason I asked, Ryan, is because in your research, that's where we found like some of the, I think if I'm not mistaken wrong, you correct me on this, but you found that the league winners are coming from that round 3-4 range at quarterbacks. That's really essentially, that's what's kind of given me pause, because I've been all in on just waiting because I love the late round quarterbacks. But I'm like, is there a lot of value because of that top tier is so available in leagues in round 3 and 4?
Yeah, so I mean, I would say yes, your best chance at getting a league winner period is by drafting one of those big 4 elite QBs. Okay. But also you're foregoing a shot at a running back or at a wide receiver that you could win bigger with, right? Okay. When we see like the 65, 70% playoff or advance rate players, those are all the wide receivers and running backs generally. And you can always lock in like a really strong floor with a late round QB that you can't replicate at running back and wide receiver. So yeah, I think both approaches are totally valid. And I think it's really contextual, just kind of on what the draft room is giving you.
And real quick, Ian and Graham, is there anything different for you? Are you guys just curious if you guys have any feelings of, I do like some players in that middle tier, or is it same for you? It's either you're taking the top tier or you're waiting.
Barbell approach is cool. I call it first or last, like the great Ricky Bobby. Again, I'm cool getting Josh Allen or Lamar or Hurts or Daniels, but after that, man, I'm fine waiting. Yeah, Drake Maye's certainly got all the things we look for. Justin Fields, depending on the draft, can be around that QB 15 range. I know his completion percentage in practice has been all the rage recently, but again, we care about rushing yards, so who the freaking hell cares about what he's doing in practice right now as we sit in early August? So, but even just beyond that, Jordan Love, Justin Herbert, JJ McCarthy, Trevor Lawrence, like the fact that those guys all have proven QB1 upside going around QB20 range, sign me up. And as Graham mentioned too, man, maybe I'm stealing the guy. I don't think he was on the list, but like if you get one of those dudes and then you can just match him up with the last round or second to last round Anthony Richardson, that's great because Richardson's going to be a top 15 dude, whether we like it or not, anytime he is starting. And yeah, in a redraft league, if Daniel Jones gets the job or Richardson gets hurt, cut his ass anyway.
And I love this right now, real quick. We've got Jacob throwing up last week's show with Ryan. And I do have to call this out before we go to our first ad break. Ryan is wearing the same shirt as last week, but I did talk to him off air and it's fine. He just did his laundry yesterday. He's a younger guy, Ryan. Like I said, he's the young guy coming up in fantasy. Okay. Young guys they live different lives than us, but we're going to take our first break here. A word from our sponsor. We'll get back into the draft because round 2 is about to start with our second favorite value sleepers.
Critics are buzzing about the new season of Yellow Jackets.
This is not healthy.
Yellow Jackets' new season now streaming on the Paramount Plus with Showtime plan.
The thing is, Ryan is wearing the same shirt as last week because that's how dedicated he is to the grind. You know, you understand what I'm saying? Like he's behind the spreadsheet, grinding the numbers, giving you guys the exact players you need to draft. So I respect it, honestly. You have a different kind of work ethic, and it's awesome. Let's get back into this draft, though. Ryan and Graham are back on the board. I want to hear your second favorite sleeper that's still available to you.
Yeah, no one's taken a receiver yet. I'll do it. I'll take Rasheed Shaheed, round 12. There is a 6-round gap, 7-round gap, depending on what ADP you're looking at, between he and Chris Olave. And I just don't think it makes any sense, like whatsoever. I think Shaheed might just be the better receiver. You look at their last 18 full games played together. By half PPR points per game, Olave has only outscored Shaheed by 0.6 of a point. By yards per route run, their efficiency is basically the exact same. Shaheed is actually slightly more efficient. And last season, Shaheed earned more targets in their 5 games together before Shaheed got hurt. He had 34 targets to Olave's 27. He had more first reads, 32% to 25%. And we saw a little bit of a change in Shaheed's, his route distribution. We always think of Shaheed as this like vertical burner who's just, trying to get on top of the defense, stretch the defense vertically. And that still is the case. But last year, he actually ran more horizontally breaking routes than he did vertically breaking routes, which is like just huge. At Fantasy Points Data, we chart all of this in our average separation score metrics. And Shaheed getting those kind of horizontally breaking routes across, the crossers, deep crossers, shallow crossers, going over the middle is just huge for his fantasy profile. Obviously, the Saints have the worst quarterback group in the NFL, like by a wide margin. It could be Rattler week 1, which is not great. However, I mean, you're taking on a lot of quarterback and team level risk with Olave where he goes. He goes in round 6, round 7 still. Saints have the 3rd worst implied team total at 19.4 points per game, I believe. I don't know. I really have no interest in Olave this year simply because Shaheed exists. He's going, and we've got him in round 12 here, round 11. I'd be willing to take him a round or 2 above ADP just to kind of get him as my wide receiver 4 or 5. I just think he's an absolute baller. And, in a 10-team, 12-team league, I could see him kind of popping as a wide receiver too. He's just that dude. And, that he didn't have the great thing is, we've seen with Chris Godwin, we've seen, and not necessarily with Stephon Diggs, but, Shaheed's coming back from this torn meniscus, didn't get put on the PUP list to start the preseason. He's fully healthy. And yeah, I mean, if we just continue to kind of see this extension of his, repertoire, he's not just a deep burner, man, the upside with him is really, really great. So I'm all in on Rasheed Shaheed. He's my most drafted player in best ball. and he will be on all of my redraft teams at this price.
I mean, I see it. It's really easy to see how he returns value on that pick. You said it best. Like, honestly, he's already at that range. He was doing it last year before the injury, so it doesn't really need to get to another level, though that is clearly possible with him. Awesome player. Very interested to see. I have a lot of trouble coming around to the Saints this year. It's a bias I have in fantasy analysis. I really have trouble drafting these teams with horrible quarterback play, and I just don't understand how they're going to move the football with those three. But yards have to happen, right? Like, they're going to be behind in games. Someone's going to have to get the football, and Shaheed's definitely an excellent bet. That pie feels like it's very concentrated between Shaheed and Olave to me. I can't really see too many other players jumping in there. So great pick. Let's get back to this draft, though. I'm going to put Ian back on the board for his second favorite sleeper.
Juwan Johnson slander aside from you, Dan, I'm going to go round 10, Jordan Mason. Maybe the Vikings RB2, maybe the RB1. Certainly seems like they're going to be making things much more even in Minnesota than it has been in past years. So honestly, look, like, I don't think he's someone that you need to be completely going out of your way for in some of these bigger money leagues over Underdog if you're still doing best ball in August and all that. But it is one of these things where I try to look at, who actually has these big differences in their price in the money leagues versus the home leagues. Not saying all the nerds are always going to be sharper than the normies, if you will, out there. But man, ESPN right now, RB40 next to Rashad White's corpse and Zach Charbonnet. I mean, sleeper RB39 also behind Charbonnet. I just think with this Vikings offense, one of the most improved offensive lines, shout out ETR's Brandon Thorne, has him as a top 5 unit entering this year. Mason obviously has all the stats that you would love to see from himself. Number 3 in rushing yards over expected per carry last year behind Derrick Henry and Saquon Barkley. Big deal there. And honestly, man, he's a big freaking dude next to Aaron Jones. So I know that the whole goal line thing has also been floated out there. Mason himself wasn't all that fantastic inside the 5-yard line, but Jonesy much, much worse. And man, just seems like a situation where we have a chance to, again, get that flex with benefits with massive handcuff upside in an offense that we all really freaking like. So wouldn't be surprised if we do see KOC running the football just a little bit more often, given the Addison suspension early. Also, we'll see what happens with JJ McCarthy. So Jordan Mason for me, man, again, similar to Jaylen Wright, a little more expensive, obviously, but just someone with legit standalone value and huge handcuff upside that we can draft next to a bunch of wide receiver 5s and pure handcuffs.
I love it. And you can obviously, as Jacob's scrolling through right now, you can find Ian and Dwayne McFarland's running back tiers over at Fantasy Life. That's an excellent breakdown of this entire position, and that's where they have Mason in there. I'm curious, Ryan and Graham, where are you at with Mason? He's really been one of the most, at least in the deep fantasy community, like the people we interact with, one of the most buzzy players so far this preseason.
I understand why. I mean, he'll probably get the goal line role. I've cooled off on Aaron Jones a little bit. I mean, he's got coming off the career high in touches. He just turned 31. I could kind of see these guys cannibalizing each other a little bit for fantasy. Like, I could see them both kind of being roster clogger types, where they're like fine flex players, get enough volume to be flex players, but never really like winning weeks for you. I think the Vikings' goal is to kind of keep Jones fresh with Jordan Mason. You know what I mean? Like, Jones is still like the 1A to Mason's 1B, and Mason kind of has maybe more of a specialized role near the goal line. Yeah, I'm all in on the Vikings. I love McCarthy. Love this offense. Offensive line, like Ian was saying, is awesome, but I do think there's enough here between like specialized roles that these two kind of cannibalize each other a little bit.
But Graham, I'm playing for the playoffs, right? That's what we can say when there's an issue with early season usage. Yeah. Jacob did that earlier,
Yeah. He's leaning on our strategy, but no, I see it. And it's an interesting pick because, I mean, he's been selected as well this week. A lot of the picks that have been made today have been made already, which I think is interesting from a lot of standpoints, but I think it more so just sees like there are a lot of inefficiencies in current ADP, and you can still exploit them. It's August 7th. We'll see what happens when we get around to like September 7th. I know some people draft that final week, but right now, if you're drafting early, these are the advantages you can have in your draft. So I'm excited about it. As I move to my second pick, I finally got a chance to get involved in this game, and there is some game theory to it because I have a lot of sleepers I like, but Jacob and I are trying to figure out which one you guys will take first. So we have to figure that out and factor that in to our decision making. But ultimately, I came down and I said, I want to go with the player that I am most excited about, not playing the game theory. And that's going to be my round 9 pick, or our round 9 pick, Jacob and I, Matthew Golden, the rookie wide receiver on the Packers. And I think when it starts with Matthew Golden, for me, it comes down to a lot of what we've seen so far in camp. So Jordan Love praised his sharp route running, his fluid route running, and his deep speed. These are all things I think everyone knew who watched his tape. But one thing that Jordan Love praised that I thought was really interesting was his aggressive hands. And I feel like as I've watched him throughout camp and then thinking about some of his tape that I've watched, he really does a great job of attacking the football with his hands and being a hands catcher of the football. I think that's a little bit rare for his profile. A lot of people look at this profile like, oh, he can create vertically. He can maybe uncover by just getting in and out of his breaks really well, like an Antonio Brown type. But usually these players aren't excellent when it comes to attacking the football and being a hands catcher. But he is exactly that. And to pull a stat from Jacob here in defending Matthew Golden, and I'm going to start calling these Gibbs stats. So we have Azer stats. That's a big part of fantasy football today. Gibbs stats are essentially Azer stats, but they're just a little different. So on this Gibbs stat, he said in 2024, horizontally breaking routes were worth 23% more fantasy points and were 49% more likely to draw a target than vertically breaking routes. By the way, this is a fantasy points data stat. So it's a Gibbs stat via fantasy points data. And we got that team on today. So what that means to me is Matthew Golden, a player who can create by uncovering in the horizontal game, fits perfectly with this system. Matt LaFleur loves having those routes. And there's some other data that really backs up potential upside here for Matthew Golden. Looking at, and these are Gibbs stats, but looking at the percentage of teams receiving touchdowns when on the field, Matthew Golden had the 5th highest percentage last year among all rookies, or sorry, tied for the 5th highest. And that was back to his, and that comes from 2 years ago at Houston in 2023, 60% there. He also comes in career percentage of team receiving TDs when on the field, despite playing with Kun Ewers and Texas. And for me, it just comes down to watching his tape at Houston, because if you watch his tape at Texas, all you're really looking at is a player who's getting open and not getting the football. When you watch his tape at Houston, you see a player who was that entire offense and winning in a lot of ways after the catch in different ways that you just didn't see at Texas. So to me, I think there's a lot of opportunity for him. And I look at the context of the team. The Packers have not made this kind of big draft capital investment in a wide receiver. And typically speaking, the Packers have done a really good job scouting receivers. The Packers and the Steelers just understand how to scout this position and understand where to draft the talent that they're putting into that system. So just think it's a great system fit, great talent. And this is a player who may not be breaking out right away, but down the stretch run of the season, I can see him being an absolute league winner. So excited to get Matthew Golden here. Anyone have thoughts on the Packers receiver situation or Golden?
Oh man, I have lots of thoughts, but I almost want to save them strategically because I
like
don't want to like tip my hand for future sleepers.
Okay.
I guess I probably have just by saying that. But yeah, we can save them for later.
All right, we'll save those. We're going to do a quick break. Before we do a quick break here, I do want to shout out some things that need to be said. First of all, Beyond the Box Score is a new show. Jacob and I are trying to get this bad boy off the ground. We need your help. You need to hit the like button right now. Just hover your hand over that mouse. It takes you 3 seconds. Click that like button. You're going to get more content like this. Please leave a comment, by the way. If you're watching right now or if you're watching after the stream, leave a comment. These are things that really help us build the show out. Also, it is Draftathon month here at Fantasy Football Today, which means we are raising money for St. Jude. We will put a link in the comments to where you can support the Draftathon efforts. All proceeds go to St. Jude. It is an unbelievable charity. You can look it up. One of the best out there. And so we are really excited about this month. And next week, I'm excited to announce now a full week from now. It's less than a week away. I will be playing Adam Azer in the match part 2, a tennis match for charity to raise money for St. Jude. Azer is reeling right now. He's been playing like 3-4 times a week of tennis. I've probably picked up racket 4 times, 5 times this season. Doesn't matter. I'm going to beat him worse than last year. It was 6-2, 6-0 last year. We're going for 0-0, double bagel. So very excited about that. More money to be raised for St. Jude. But we're going to take a quick break to hear a word from our sponsors, then we're going to get right back into the draft with round 3.
The most original musical ever is now streaming on Paramount Plus.
I'm just giving the people what they want.
Better Man absolutely sizzles from start to finish. Better Man, now streaming on Paramount Plus.
All right, I've got 2 picks left in my draft, and this is where the game theory comes into play for me, because there is a deep sleeper that I want. And I'm just worried with this group of people on the show that one of you might take him, specifically looking at your team, Ryan and Graham. I just feel like I've seen some content on this guy, but I'm going to hold off because I want to talk about instead my round 11 pick, or our round 11 pick, Jacob and I. It's a player both Jacob and I are very, very excited about heading into the NFL. And just to give a little bit of insight into this, it is our 3rd rookie we're taking. Look, Jacob and I are, throughout listening to our show moving forward, we're big rookie guys. We believe in rookies. We believe in the talent that we watch, and we believe that rookies are often the guys that end up helping you win leagues down the stretch. And we're going to go with rookie running back Bhayshul Tuten. And Tuten is a player who I first watched film of. So just to give a little insight, for Fantasy Football Today, myself and Dave Richard do scouting profiles before the draft for fantasy football. And so we watch a lot of tape on these players, and then we kind of break down from both an NFL draft standpoint and from a fantasy standpoint. He was the first player I watched, and here we go. Graham Barfield stat up on the screen, which I love to see here. Yards created is back. Top 5 running backs in yards created from the rookie class. Bhayshul Tuten coming in third after Ashton Genty and RJ Harvey. You love to see it. And what I love to see is Bhayshul Tuten's tape, because when I watched him, he reminded me a lot of a player that I really liked a few years ago as a late dynasty stash, Khalil Herbert, when I watched his tape at college. Except the difference is Tuten actually housed those longer runs because he has that speed to turn those plays that would be 30 or 40 yards for Herbert into a touchdown. 4.32 speed on the 40-yard dash, and he's every bit of that speed when you watch him on tape. Vertical jump, 40.5 inches, first among running backs. Broad jump, 10.10, tied for second among running backs. Unbelievably explosive athlete, 96th percentile 10-yard split, 93rd percentile in those jumps, like I said. And he reminded me a little bit of Herbert, but a lot of Aaron Jones, and they have a very similar body type, just with more breakout speed. He's a player who averaged 7.6 yards per carry on outside zone runs in college. And that's kind of where I see him best fit for, which is interesting to me because, and this is something, Jacob, you brought up off the show, but Liam Cohen was really sensitive to each individual skill set in his backfield last year with the Bucs. He ran man gap for Sean Tucker. He ran outside zone almost more so for Rasheed White. So I think he's going to understand that with a player like Bhayshul Tuten, let's get him in outside zone. Let's let him use that one cut and go. And in addition to the yards created where he dominated, he was also one of the best running backs in this class at avoided tackle rate, just second behind Ashton Genty at 36.6%. Fastest 10-yard split in the past 3 running back classes of any running back drafted round 5 or earlier, just above Keaton Mitchell, or I'm sorry, just behind Keaton Mitchell. He was the second fastest in that range of Devon Achane. He's a player I think is stronger than he looks, really good when it comes to running with a low center of gravity. The issue for me is just the 11 fumbles lost. 9 of them, or 11 fumbles with and 9 lost in his career. He fumbled once every 67 touches. So will that be an issue getting him on the field early? Possibly. We'll see. But career avoided tackle rate, as Jacob showing up here, facing Power 5 defenses, 35.8%. Just a phenomenal player to watch on tape. And for me, the bet is betting on the talent, betting on the breakout speed, and just betting on Liam Cohen understanding that this is a piece in his offense. Because one thing with Tuten is he's not, in my opinion, the most advanced route runners receiver, but he looked really natural on the design screen passes. And that's something that I think Liam Cohen will operate, will use with Tuten early in his offense. So this is a player that I want to get. Anyone have any thoughts on Tuten before we move to the next pick?
I've never seen a running back get more praise as a receiver who had 81 yards on 23 catches. Can we just say that? Like, yeah, okay, I get it. He's had a great combine. He's a fast dude. We all like Liam Cohen and everything, but I don't know, man. Again, maybe it just works out and he's the man by week 15 and we're all happy. But like Tank Bigsby just had all those amazing stats at the NFL level. If Bhayshul Tuten was having the camp Tank Bigsby's having right now, Tuten probably be a round 5 pick. So, hey, playing for the playoffs. I get it, guys. So go Tuten. But I feel like this isn't exactly the can't miss, no doubt about it prospect that some people make it out to be.
It's fair. I think there's definitely some projection when it comes to Tuten, mostly in my opinion with the role. I just don't know that they have any, even with Bigsby and ETN, I don't know that they have anyone as explosive in that offense. And this is just a coordinator that I believe values that and will look to bring that out early in his offense. We'll see though. It's definitely a risky draft pick here, in my opinion, based on the fumbling issues. All right, we'll move on though. We'll go to the 3rd round pick for you, Ian, your 3rd favorite sleeper that's still available.
I'm not even that high on this guy, but I'm sure Ryan and Graham are because everyone else seems to be. So give me Emeka Egbuka from the Ohio State University. Most receptions in the illustrious, history of the reigning, defending national champions. I am born and raised in Columbus, Ohio. Shout out Buckeyes. But yeah, man, look, again, got the 1st round draft capital. Chris Godwin, does he even have an ankle at this point? I mean, it just sounds worse and worse. The fact that Todd Bowles unironically told us that this dude had a chance to come back for a deep playoff run just continues to piss me off more day by day. But yeah, I mean, Baker Mayfield, number 1 in touchdown passes over the past 2 years. Would have been cool if that Liam Cohen guy was still doing his thing in Tampa. So again, with Emeka, I do get some Rome Odunze bust vibes again, because I think he's a perfectly fine receiver, but there's a lot of really good wide receivers. And it's one of those things where it's like, look at Emeka Egbuka's talent. Well, look at Josh Downs and Matthew Golden and all the other guys going around him. I mean, it's not just like he's this complete can't miss different level of talent versus the guys going around him. But end of the day, again, I just think even if you strip that, the fact we do have a first-round wide receiver going as a wide receiver, late wide receiver 4, early wide receiver 5, that's enough to throw a dart there. So he really is kind of in that last range too, where I even want to take wide receivers in the first place. Graham getting Rasheed Shaheed earlier. I think I said take him because I'm trying to say that after every single one of their picks just to be kind of a hole with it. But yeah, like Egbuka, Rasheed Shaheed, Keon Coleman. I don't think I can draft him anymore because he's a round 10 guy as well. So those are like one of the 3 last guys where I'm like, okay, I'm going to take one more wide receiver and then move on to the handcuff running back. So again, we also talk about Baker being due for regression. And as much as I am worried about Chris Godwin, Bucks must have given him $66 million with some level of thinking that he was going to be ready. Obviously that Mike Evans guy not going anywhere as well. So, as awesome as Egbuka burning undrafted free agents on the Titans is on the timeline, maybe getting a little bit out of control there. Certainly a very good player in his own right.
If I'm not mistaken, Egbuka is the only player that's been selected in all 3 of our sleeper week drafts so far. So every analyst that's come on the show, at least one of them has chosen Egbuka. And I don't know if that's a good thing. Assume it is. I'm joking. But obviously sometimes we get into groupthink. I don't think that's the case though with Egbuka. I think when it comes down to it, he's going to be on the field because he's somebody who can get right in there and block and somebody who can play within that offense at all 3 positions, including outside. I really do believe that. So because of that, he could be a really good buy and somebody who can make an impact early. The only issue I have is there's so many mouths to feed in that offense. And
playing for the playoffs, Dan.
We are playing for the playoffs. Feels like with all these sleepers, in a lot of ways, we are playing for the playoffs. So I'm in it. I'm on that pick as well. Let's move on though here. Let's give one more pick here to close out this round. We're going to put Ryan and Graham back on the board.
All right. Well, Graham and I have consulted on our deep sleeper. I'll probably let Graham do that one. Okay. But I'll go to our other guy that I referenced earlier. I think we're just going to take Jaden Reed off the board here in round 9. So here's all my thoughts on the Packers receivers, essentially. It definitely depends what you think of Matthew Golden as a prospect. But the way that I kind of game out this receiving room is if Matthew Golden just takes all of the outside routes that Christian Watson and Dontavian Wicks split last year, we have to ask ourselves, okay, how well is he going to earn targets on a per route basis compared to the combination of Wicks and Watson? And you might say, oh, Ryan, he's a round 1 wide receiver. He'll probably be better than those 2 guys. I don't think that's anywhere close to a lock. The combination of Watson and Wicks averaged over a 25% target per route run rate last year. That was the same as Justin Jefferson. So essentially, Jaden Reed was competing against Justin Jefferson on the outside, just from a pure target earning perspective. What has Matthew Golden done throughout his college career? Just a 19% target per route run. That was, again, in college against NCAA competition. That was bottom 10 percentiles among all day 1 and 2 picks over the last several draft classes. I think Matthew Golden can add value to this offense as a field stretcher. I don't think he's necessarily going to be this high-end target earner. So you step Jaden Reed here into the slot. Even if he's still in his exact same role where he only plays in 11 personnel, this is a player that has averaged nearly the same yards per route run as Malik Neighbors over the first 2 years of his career, top 10 in fantasy points per route run since he entered the NFL. All we need here is a bit less target competition on a per route basis, and additionally for the Packers to throw the ball more. Jaden Reed was averaging over 18 fantasy points per game last year in Jordan Love's only 5 starts before his groin injury in week 8. That also happens to line up with when the Packers went extremely run heavy over the second half of the season, much run heavier than we have ever seen a Matt LaFleur offense be. So to me, I just prefer Reed narrowly over Golden because we've seen him perform on that per route basis at the NFL level already. I think you're making fewer assumptions to get a Jaden Reed breakout year than you are a Matthew Golden breakout year, because Golden needs all the same things. He still needs the pass rate to increase more than likely for him to matter. to me, I just prefer Reed. He's the more proven, just incredible talent that I want to be betting on him, especially when he is so much cheaper than he was last season in essentially the same role. And as I just argued, with less target competition on a per out basis.
I like it. It's going to be interesting. We've had Reed and Golden both named as sleepers on the show this week. So just be interesting to see how that shakes out. Obviously, Romeo Doubs still has a big role in that offense too. And I've seen him have some nice reports coming out of camp. Ultimately, I think maybe the moral of it is buy Jordan Love, buy into that Packers offense. That could be where we're at with this. But I love that pick. And it's just another player who has a really good opportunity. We'll move on now, actually, the fourth round here, and we'll put you guys right back on the board with your next sleeper pick.
All right, so game 3 here, right? We're the only team without a round 10 sleeper, so we can just wait.
True.
I'll take the deep sleeper off the board. Ryan and I have a mind meld on this player. It's a player we cannot stop clicking on Best Ball Breakdown on our YouTube show where we live draft Best Ball Mania. We have to stack here with Drake Maye. It's Hunter Henry. Love him late. He's basically free in drafts right now. I think his consensus ADP is like in the 180s. So last year, only 7 tight ends ranked inside the top 12 in both route participation rate and target share. They were Trey McBride, Brock Bowers, Evan Ingram, Travis Kelce, David Njoku, George Kittle, and Hunter Henry. In Maye's 10 starts last year, Henry led the team in targets, receptions, and yards. Obviously, more target competition this year with Diggs and Kyle Williams, but I'm mainly interested in Henry for his touchdown upside. Henry has the 8th, 9th most end zone targets among tight ends over the last 2 seasons, and I think Ryan alluded to this earlier that the Patriots' projected team total is it's really strong. Like they're right up there with Dallas, like right in the middle of the pack this season after just being an abysmal offense for the previous 3-4 years. If the Patriots do score around 22, 23 points per game, it would be a massive 7-8 point differential from 2 years ago where they were the worst offense in the league. It would be field goal, maybe 4 points better compared to last year. And like I said, Henry is free. He's tight end 21, tight end 22 by ADP. Patriots also have a really easy slate of schedule just across the full season by projected win totals. I think it's maybe the easiest or the second easiest, only behind the Niners. They have a really easy slate to start the season. I don't know if Henry's a league winner by any means. He has, when he was with the Chargers earlier in his career, he has a couple of top 10 finishes. So we've seen him, kind of post back end top 10 numbers. And that's kind of what I'm expecting, that okay, yeah, he's not a George Kittle, Brock Bowers, Trey McBride by any means. He's not going to be putting up 14, 15 half PPR points per game, but I definitely see a pathway here where he finishes tight end 9, tight end 10 on an offense that everyone wants to buy into. He's got some touchdown upside, and the best point is this price point. I mean, it's really, really nice. If you punt tight end, like I typically kind of do, I take a barbell approach to tight end as well, and especially this year. I think Henry just makes a ton of sense.
It's a really interesting pick. I think this is definitely the first time we've had Henry on the show, and I really like this pick. And I'm just curious, does this, because you feel so strongly about Henry, does it impact your strategy at all coming into drafts? For example, are you less likely to go up top and take a Brock Bowers or take a McBride? Or is it just kind of let the draft come to you? And if you do miss on those types of guys, you'll then be looking in this range?
Sure. Brock Bowers and McBride are they're tricky because receiver and running back in that pocket, in my opinion, is really good. And Ryan kind of alluded to this in Anatomy of a League Winner. Basically, the receivers that you're foregoing in that pocket are mostly the league winning types. It's really hard to find a league winning type receiver round 5, round 6, round 7. So I'm not fading Bowers and McBride. I love George Kittle. I think he's just the best 4th round pick on the board. If there's anybody that has made me kind of a little lower on McBride and Bowers, it's Kittle in round 4. I mean, it's just he was the tight end 1 by 1 full point over Bowers and McBride last season. Jauan Jennings is dealing with this calf issue. Brandon Ayuk's going to start the year on PUP. Brock Purdy is apparently playing really well in camp. Like the reports are glowing out of camp. And if Purdy starts hot, man, like Kittle is going to absolutely smash. And you can get him in round 4. You don't have to burn a second round pick like you do with Bowers. First round pick on Bowers and tight end premium league. Same with McBride. You get a little bit of a discount on Kittle. I think this is a really interesting year for late round tight end. We would have taken Colston Loveland for sure. I think that definitely would have been our pick. That being said, though, I think Hunter Henry's he's not sexy by any means, but the floor is really high, I think, with this guy.
Yeah, just very much our like break glass in case Colston Loveland got sniped button, which is exactly what we did in this draft. It's what I'm doing in my actual draft. So yeah.
I just find this like specific. We talked a lot earlier about the quarterback situation and how we're drafting quarterbacks. I find the tight end the most. I agree with you. I find it the most tricky because I really do like Brock Bowers this year, and I like McBride a lot. But from a strategy standpoint, taking those guys and passing up on what you're going to get there at running back or receiver, it's so hard for me to build a team out the way I like to, despite really feeling like Bowers is undervalued personally, I believe, at his ADP. And I almost feel the same way about McBride, given what they can do, not only from production standpoint, but just versus the rest of the field at tight end and just that the confidence I have in that. But it's just going to be interesting to see where I end up ultimately landing on that. Like it makes such a big difference in how you build your team.
Bro, I can't take Bowers over Devon Achane or Brian Thomas. Like I can't do it. I know he's awesome. Like I know Brock Bowers is awesome. I know this is a big quarterback upgrade, but just from, like you said, a structural standpoint, like those two guys look like league winners to me. And it's just, it gets thin, especially at receiver. I don't know how you guys feel this year about receiver, but like after Devontae Adams is off the board, around Mike Evans, it's just like a big, long, flat tier. And the way I'm personally building teams is just like, man, I feel so much better about those second round receivers. So it's been hard for me to click Bowers over, BTJ, Amon-Ra, even AJ Brown.
Let me ask you guys another question.
700 yards from Hunter Henry from once, though. I mean, that just breaks my mind. This dude hasn't gotten 700 yards in the receiving. I know he's had a couple injuries here or there, but man, I was looking at CBS ADP. I'm just saying Dalton Kincaid, Evan Ingram going next to Hunter Henry, man. I don't know. I'll take them. Just my 2 cents.
I like Kincaid this year. I've never been a Kincaid guy for what it's worth, but this price it's pretty awesome. But it's the same thing with the Bills that's always been. Like they brought in Josh Palmer, Shakir, still there. Like it's going to be a pretty spread out target share. Whereas like the Patriots, I'm envisioning like Diggs is clearly the alpha, but I think Henry will kind of sneak into the number 2 slot. And I think with Henry specifically, like their quarterbacks have been terrible with the Patriots. If he had stayed with the Chargers or literally gone anywhere else, I think we'd be talking about Henry's career a little differently.
Interesting.
I just think if we were sitting here this time last year and like the fantasy football genie was like, hey, Hunter Henry is going to lead this team in targets. Drake Maye is going to start 10 or 11 games. We're going to be like happy with how he plays as well. And Hunter Henry finishes tight end 16. Like, I don't know, man. I know that we have the low end tight end 1 split specifically with Maye, so Jacoby wasn't doing him any favors. So, we're talking about a guy going the last round, so I'll quit being a dick about it. But, I'm not drafting much Hunter Henry. We'll see if that comes back to bite me.
This McDaniel scheme should, in theory, help him as well, Hunter Henry. It's interesting. I wanted to follow up on one thing, a little bit off topic, but we have a little bit extra time before we finish off this draft. You mentioned Devontae Adams and kind of that range of how receiver just dries out so fast, which I completely agree with if you do decide to take a Bowers or McBride over one of them. Are you guys, and I just want to get all your thoughts on this, if you're drafting today, and a lot of people listening are drafting this weekend, that's why they're listening, are you at all downgrading Adams, Puka, Kyren based on what's going on with Matthew Stafford?
It is like the $1 million question, isn't it? Personally, I am not. I was well ahead of ADP on both of them before the Stafford stuff came out. I'm more like moderately ahead of ADP on both of them at this point. Our guy, Dr. Edwin Porras, is pretty optimistic about Stafford. Basically, he's like, yeah, those epidural shots, they work awesome. He's probably going to be good. Stafford obviously has kind of dealt with this throughout his career. It hasn't impacted him in most seasons that badly. So yeah, I am cautiously saying I will still take Puka and Adams at ADP or slightly above ADP.
It's interesting because these are all players I was with you on. I was high, and without Stafford, I have no faith in that offense. That's the only thing for me.
Yeah, I think it's a tiebreaker. It's fine. I mean, that entire wide receiver 2 tier, we can poke a hole with someone. It's not like Tyreek Hill and Jackson Smith and Jigba, and these guys are just clear cut A+, profiles anyway compared to Devontae. So I still prefer Nico to Puka, but I got Puka and Neighbors, right behind him. So again, I've seen some people have Puka as high as wide receiver 2. I don't think that's outrageous. Honestly, I think it could be when I made my wide receiver tiers, like it's Jamar Chase alone, and then it's these next 4 or 5 guys behind him. So wherever you want to put them, I'm with you.
Fair enough. Let's get back into the draft. Let's move forward here. I believe we went sidetracked a little bit. I believe you're on the board here, Ian, correct?
Yes, I'm going to go with my deep sleeper. Give me Browns, RB1, RB2, RB3, Dylan Sampson. Come on down. I'm not sure if you guys realize this. Quinshon Judkins, not on an NFL team. He's not signed. He is not on a team. So when I hear thoughts about, it could be a 6-game suspension, could be an 8-game suspension. Well, he signed a contract. The Browns owner, Jimmy Haslam, said they're cautiously optimistic he will be on the team. Not he's going to play this year, that he will be on the team. So that's what makes this entire situation just so weird. Because usually what happens when a player does something horrendous in the world, the NFL team says, okay, we're going to let our, just league figure this out. And the league says, okay, we're going to let our judicial system of our country figure this out. And the country says, we got shit to do. It's going to take like 2 years. So that's not the case because, again, Quinshon Judkins, not on a team right now. So, Jerome Ford is going to be involved as well. And maybe he's even going to start RB1. But as we talked about on this show, guys, we are playing for the playoffs, not week 1. And I just think that, again, Dylan Sampson, someone where I know guys like Dane Brugler actually had him as a top 5, top 6 running back. A lot of people had day 2 grade on him in the first place. I'm sure Graham's hopefully got some good yards created numbers for Sampson. If not, I'm sure we can conjure up some other stuff from the great mind of Jacob Gibbs that will paint a nice picture there. So, again, with Dylan Sampson, it's just a matter of I think he could see a similar role as Quinshon Judkins. I'm not willing to say Judkins is in a completely different stratosphere as Sampson when it comes to pure talent. No, we don't love the offense. No, we don't love the fact that Stefanski has usually kept multiple guys involved. But, man, if we were treating Judkins as, kind of borderline RB2 already, I don't see why Sampson should be that far behind. So certainly seeing his ADP creep up depending on the site. But Judkins is still hanging around in that RB3 range. And one last time, guys, he's not on the football team right now.
Yeah, and that's going to be really interesting to track this entire situation as it plays out.
Gibbs got my back.
Yeah, Gibbs is look, the tape for Sampson was really fun to watch, and I feel
like Tuten all the way down there, not even barely in the scream of my guy Dylan Sampson.
There we go. Look, tape was fun to watch. It's really hard, I think, to evaluate a Josh Heupel system running back. I had this problem with Jaylen Wright as well. I'm actually curious how Graham evaluates these running backs with yards created, just considering like the boxes they face are so light throughout the entire game. But the talent's definitely there. And he was somebody, just to give a little transparency, he was somebody who Jacob and I were considering, and we just got sniped on. But we do have other options, and it is our pick, Jacob and I. So debating if we're going with our late round guy or our round 12 guy. This was kind of the debate. I think we will settle in here with a round 12 guy who might actually be considered a late round guy too. But he's somebody we would be willing to take in round 12. He's had a lot of hype so far this camp. It's Tory Horton, the rookie wide receiver on the Seahawks. And listen, Tory Horton, when you look at him, he tested as one of the best athletes in NFL history. According to RAS score, relative athletic score, he was the 66th most athletic wide receiver out of 3,816 wide receivers who tested at the combine since 1985. But it's not just that. The production was there too. 71 catches, 1,131 yards, and 8 TDs in 2022. Another 96, 1,136, and 8 in 2023. Obviously had the injured season in 2024, the reason he fell in the draft. But he's getting reps with the first team offense already. Probably a better fit for the role that they signed Marquez Valdes-Scantling to play in Clint Kubiak's offense. I look back at the game against Colorado in 2023. That game just stands out to me. 16 catches, 133 yards. I got a chance to watch the tape of that game. Did a really good job when matched up against Travis Hunter. He said himself when he ran a 4.41 at the combine, he did it at less than 70% health. I don't know if we have this available to us, Jacob, but there was a clip you put up, I don't remember exactly when. It might have been a day or two ago, but there was a clip that you put up of Tory Horton just breaking away from defenders. And that dude looked like he had a lot better than 4.41 speed. His ability to get away from defenders is unbelievable. He had a 13.0 yards per route run on 145 targets. last season. 34.1% target share is excellent. 2.84 yards per out run against FBS competition. He can make contested catches. He was number 1 in contested catch rate at 81.3%. 0 drops on deep passes over 20+ air yards. Fluid route runner. I think ultimately, and here's the clip that I was referencing that Jacob's putting up on the screen. That's just like different level video game breakaway speed here from Tory Horton. As a player and as a prospect, I'm insanely excited about him. Situationally, obviously, we have to figure out how it's going to play out. Yes, he's running with the ones already, but there is Cooper Kupp there. They signed him to play in that offense. Obviously, JSN was the guy who commanded most of the targets last year, but Horton brings something different, in my opinion, to this offense. And then finally, I see Jacob putting it up here, but he checked out with Matt Harmon as well. Reception perception, really good success rate against press coverage. That's something you always want to see because at the NFL level, we're going to be seeing more press man, press bail. So just interesting prospect to me. Maybe this is not, like I've seen people say like, oh, is this year's Puka Nacua? No, I don't think that's the case. Like he's not in a McVay offense that's so like funneled through 2 players. And he doesn't have Matthew Stafford at quarterback. I think that's the biggest difference, but he could be that Puka Nacua light type player, I think, at the end of the season. So I'm very excited about getting Horton here. Do any of you guys have thoughts on Horton for this season?
Yeah, do you actually want him on your bench in a home league, though? Like, when are you going to start this guy? If JSN and Cooper Kupp win the lottery and bounce, then okay. But, like, again, I'm fine getting on, like, okay, you can beat out Marquez Valdes-Scantling. That's not a very high bar. But I just really struggle to see myself, even in week 15 and 16, like, all right, now's your time, Tory Horton. Let's do this. Sam Darnold, Jalen Milroe, like, step up. Let's do this. So,
yeah, I question the role too, Ian, but man, he does have some serious juice. It's probably like more of like a late round best ball take, but yeah, he's going to beat out MVS. And I think Dane Brugler mentioned that he hit like 22.5 miles per hour in game last year. I mean, that's flying. I mean, if Kupp is dust, like JSN is awesome, but if Kupp is dust, like there's a chance he could crack like, 5-6 target per game role here.
I just think regardless of if he's go ahead, Ryan.
I was just and it's not just if Kupp is dust. If you're of the mindset that Kupp and JSN are redundant of each other, this is a Clint Kubiak offense that absolutely thrives on the deep play action game. That's Tory Horton's game. He can get downfield in a way that Cooper Kupp cannot at this point in his career, in a way we haven't really seen JSN do at the NFL level yet in his career. I think it's pretty interesting. It's hard to get him on like your redraft bench. I would agree with Ian's point there. But yeah, any like deeper bench type of leagues, that this is a guy that I would not be totally shocked if he's kind of a trendy like week 1 waiver ad would be how I would look at it. So yeah, in a deeper league, if you want to get ahead of the curve there, I think it makes a ton of sense if you just want to bet on that Kubiak offense.
I think you made
real
the case
quick
better.
On the Kubiak thing, Ryan. I'm curious on your thoughts on this. How do we balance the fact that yes, magical week 1 and week 2, also against the 2 worst defenses in the National Football League in points per game, nothing the rest of the year, and I know guys were injured, but my God, like, have we ever had this much faith in the coordinator off of a literal 2-week sample size? Like, yeah, he dialed up some play action bombs for Rasheed Shaheed, Chris Olave, Derek Carr's throwing a nice deep ball. I know the mainstream media won't tell you that, but I'm just like, if we had to rank the play callers, are we just automatically giving Kubiak top 10 already, Ryan? I don't know, man.
Yeah, I would not give him top 10 real life or anywhere really close to that. I'm most confident in Kubiak from a run game perspective, in that he just absolutely loves throwing a ton of screens to his running back, whether it was Alvin Kamara, obviously last year, or in 2021 when he was the OC for Dalvin Cook and Alexander Mattison. The running back role is amazing. I'm not like entirely going to go out there and say, yes, he's going to make every wide receiver awesome as well. Obviously, it seemed to require good personnel on the interior of the offensive line that the Saints did not have after week 2 last year, really. And I would not say they have in Seattle currently. So, yes, I will grant you that that's a hole. I'm not really targeting JSN or Kupp at their ADPs, but I do think Horton is like a very fun, low-risk way to kind of bet on the Kubiak offense in that sense, if that's what you're looking for.
Cool.
Yeah, I just think for me, I think you made the case almost better than I did for myself, Ryan. It's just watching Shaheed in that offense last year, understanding like who's going to be running those deep play action plays. I could just envision Horton being that guy who takes the knife, is that knife in the defense that really creates the rest of the offense. So, or really facilitates the rest of the offense. So we'll see how it happens. It's a deep sleeper. Look, I get it. He may not hit, but I'm very excited about his talent. And I honestly believe if it wasn't for the injury, he would have been a day 2 draft pick. That's what it looks like on tape. All right, let's get back to the draft here, though. Going to our final round here. I do have the first pick of the final round here, having the last pick of that round. And so we're going deep for this deep sleeper. And by the way, the draft was a little rigged. It's a 5-round draft, and Jacob and I had the first pick, and now we get the first pick of the last round. And not the most fair thing, but it is what it is. Sometimes at Beyond the Box, where we give ourselves a little bit of advantage here. And Jacob and I are taking a player here who we both love. This is a player who I think is it reminds me of like something I came onto early in just my analysis, in becoming a fantasy analyst. I watched a lot of Matt Wallman and his analysis early in my career. And one thing he always had me thinking about when watching running backs on tape is their processing ability and how they see the field, and both their vision in setting up blocks, but also in understanding cutback lanes, and how important that is to playing the running back position. Because back in when I was first starting, it was like 2015 range. A lot of people just cited speed and size. There was a lot of speed score stuff. It was like, how big are you? How fast are you? But playing the running back position is way more nuanced than I think people realize. So this pick that we're making here is Taj Brooks, the rookie running back on the Bengals. Super, super deep cut here. Obviously not, we haven't put the graphic up yet, Jacob, but I assume does not have a lot of ADP data right now. But when I look at Brooks, I think he was arguably one of the best processing running backs in this class, and the way he set up his blocks and the way that he understood how to attack certain types of blocking schemes, specifically man gap. He's really good in power blocking schemes. And that's awesome because the Bengals ranked 5th in man gap run rate in 2024. So it feels like a perfect schematic fit. And Brooks averaged 5.6 yards per carry, 3.5 after contact, and a 28% avoided tackle rate in man gap runs in his college career. He also averaged 4.9 yards, 2.9 after contact, and a 25% avoided tackle rate on his college career within that scheme. So I think ultimately when it comes to Brooks, they've already cut Zach Moss. There's not a lot of competition on that roster, in my mind, at least. I know Samaje Perine, is on that roster to maybe play some passing down roles. But I think looking back at a lot of the Bengals tape I watched, and I understand Chase Brown was really good in fantasy, thought he was very inefficient as an early down runner. And they were put in a lot of different situations, 2nd and 9, 2nd and 8, where Joe Burrow had to bail them out. I think they are looking for somebody who can come in and play in the offense and get them into better and more manageable 3rd down situations than Chase Brown did as a pure runner. I think Brooks could easily be that guy, especially with Moss now off the roster. So just somebody who I think can be on the field earlier than people expect. And I think Jacob's putting this up now, but he was also one of the better pass protecting running backs in this class. As you see, 60 pass pro reps, better than 7.5% pressure rate or lower allowed. That's Travion Henderson, Omarion Hampton, Ollie Gordon, and Taj Brooks. So that's another way he can get on the field early. If we're thinking about guys who could be early waiver wire ads, Brooks comes to mind for me more than a lot of players at this running back position, given the team context. So that's our pick to close this draft out. Anyone have thoughts on Brooks? Because I know he's a deep cut.
Take him instead of a DST or kicker if you're drafting right now.
There you go.
It's a lottery ticket.
All right, let's move it forward then, and let's finish out here, Ian, with your last round pick here.
Give me Jauan Jennings, round 9. I don't need a quarterback.
Okay.
I was leaning Fields or Purdy. The calf thing isn't ideal. I saw, the great Scott Barrett, shout out fantasy points and everything you guys do, have that funny note about the non-contract calf injury. So, yeah, we'll see. I don't love, I think it was, oh my gosh. I always forget who coined the phrase, but, don't seek out injuries in August. They'll find you soon enough once the season starts. So there's an element of that there. But, man, Jauan Jennings is such a dog. Would have cleared 1,000 yards last year if he had a little better health, didn't have that BS suspension, by the way, at the end of the season as well. So I just think, again, as much as Pearsall is fine, I think both these dudes at their costs are pretty fine. They're playing with a quarterback who's number 1 in this Super Bowl era in yards per attempt and passer rating. And whether you want to give most of that credit to Kyle Shanahan or not, we've seen enough know that this 49ers system is just completely loaded. I mean, who is the freaking Thursday night receiver for Ricky James? Yeah. Just, if you give Kyle Shanahan Ryan Heath as wide receiver 1, I think Ryan could go out there and get at least 50 yards for us. Okay. So again, Jauan Jennings, just an absolute dog out there. I mean, he's been fun to watch as a blocker even before all this. We'll see if he gets his contract extension or not, but it seems like he loves football so much it's not going to, be much of a difference. So again, wide receiver 4 price tag. And I think as long as Ayuk is out, which certainly seems like it's going to be a month, if not more, going to be someone that could potentially offer wide receiver 2 goodness. So I do realize that, you guys were talking about George Kittle earlier. I'm with you on that. I think the answer to which wide receiver is going to be the best is probably just George Kittle, but he's obviously going so much earlier in the drafts. I do think this is a passing game that can enable multiple dudes. And again, just the reality, and I've gone back this with Kittle, but it's true for Jennings as well. Like if we were sitting here in week 9 last year and we're like, okay, Deebo Samuel's out, Brandon Ayuk's out. We'd be over the moon to play these other guys, and that's what we're looking at now for at least the first month or 2 of the season. So round 9, Jauan Jennings, sign me up.
Another player who's been picked a lot in our sleeper week drafts. So it's just an interesting player. Let's move forward to the last pick here. Before I do that, I actually did want to follow up though, Graham, because I wanted to see if what I'm watching when it comes to breaking down the tape of a player like Taj Brooks does check out with yards created, because he seems like a player who would be very good for that kind of metric. And where were you at with Taj Brooks when you watched this tape?
Yeah, I actually did not chart Brooks for yards created. Did watch him a little bit though. Obviously, I don't think he's got this home run speed by any means, but like you said, yeah, I mean, he's definitely a well-built in between the tackles runner. I thought he was pretty good in pass pro too. It's interesting. The Bengals have kind of completely changed their running back scouting a little bit. They're all in on these guys who have proven college production, and Brooks certainly has that. Yeah, I think all of this though, man, is just Chase Brown to the moon. Unless Chase Brown gets hurt, Taj Brooks, really good handcuff right now, because I agree. Samaje Perine just probably going to have his specialized pass down role, probably only play 15, 20 to 20% of the snaps at most. So if Brown does get hurt, Brooks is certainly a good handcuff. But yeah, I'm trying not to double count because I was already super high on Chase Brown. But I mean, he's just he's set up so well this season for fantasy.
Yeah, I've moved him well up my rankings, Chase Brown, in recent weeks, just because I've come around to the idea, especially once Moss was cut, just the idea of as much as I like Taj Brooks, this is probably going to be a situation where it's just Chase Brown operating in the same role he did at the end of last season, where he's one of the most effective and highest scoring fantasy backs. So there's just no real reason not to believe that's going to happen again. So I'm in on that as well. Let's move on to your last round pick though here, Ryan and Graham. How are you going to close this out today?
All right, Graham, I want to trust in our mind meld here. Looking at these round 10 sleepers, I think I know who you want, but you can say it.
It's Josh Downs. How's it not?
Yes, it's Josh Downs.
Yeah.
Yes.
Take it.
All right. Josh Downs, look, man, it really comes down to this Colts pass catcher core, extremely crowded, extremely ambiguous. Downs is just a baller, man. So has by far some of the best per route data that you're going to find anywhere in the NFL. I believe it's third or fourth in targets per route run last year, only behind Puka Nacua and Drake London and insanely elite fantasy wide receivers. Obviously has a slightly similar problem to Jaden Reed in that he has really only played in 11 personnel so far in his career. Less of a problem, though, on the Colts, I would say. The Colts are much more of an 11 personnel type of team, so Downs is just naturally on the field more because of that. And over 15 fantasy points per game in games without Anthony Richardson last year. You probably want Daniel Jones to play more than Anthony Richardson for this to fully pan out, in my opinion. And that's just because Jones has shown better accuracy in the short and intermediate areas. He has been better at targeting horizontally breaking routes, which is what Josh Downs has kind of created all of his production on so far in his career. Not that Downs can't get downfield. He totally can. So that is also an exciting thing that he could add to his game. Yeah, he's just really easy, really safe as I have to fill in my wide receiver 3 late in a draft, but has the upside for more entering year 3 with some of the best, like I've said, peripherals of any year 3 receiver you're going to find. It's pretty exciting.
Downs is an interesting one. He's been featured on this Sleepers Week a lot. I think the debate for a lot of people, at least for me, comes down to like, what role will Tyler Warren have in this offense? And will he take away from Josh Downs to some extent? Even to another extent, like A.D. Mitchell, a player who I absolutely loved on tape at Texas, thought was unbelievably underrated as a draft prospect, has been awesome in camp as well. That one I'm a little more skeptical on from a fantasy standpoint. And then it just comes down to like, do you trust these quarterbacks, Richardson and Jones? So it's just a lot. The player is amazing with Downs. The player is well better, I think, than where he's being drafted right now. But the situation is what scares me a little bit. Ian, do you have any thoughts on this one?
I mean, Michael Pittman's not dead either. And we haven't even talked about
true.
the actual leading receiver from the Colts last year, Alec Pierce. All right. He does his thing as well. So look, I've drafted a good amount of Downs. Again, at that wide receiver 4 or 5 term price tag. Like, I'm honestly like him or Pittman, a lot of drafts, like whichever one is kind of left, I'm happy to scoop up. But I've had the same like inner conversation myself with what Ryan just said, and I don't like it. We want Daniel Jones at quarterback. Like, that's not fun to say out loud, everyone. So again, Downs, great player.
I'm not sure we want Daniel Jones at quarterback.
Yeah. How about Down? Look, Caleb's brother, great talent and everything. I get it, but it's just a lot of mouths to feed. It's honestly like Green Bay like the Green Bay version of AFC. I think I'd even argue, they're kind of similar, actually. I don't know if there is a one. Maybe Matthew Golden can actually be the one. But I do wonder if we kind of get to December, and it's kind of like what we're scared of. Everyone has between, 70 and 75 targets, but we'll see.
Yeah, it's going to be interesting. This is one of those situations that's going to be really interesting for fantasy, just to track throughout the year, because I think it's going to.
Let's watch this 16-minute video and discuss.
It's going to evolve as the quarterbacks evolve, because I don't think we're going to see either of them play the full season, Richardson or Jones. So,
I just want to make one bull case for Downs with Anthony Richardson. Like, okay, by catchable targets, like it was really bad. I think Downs was like outside of the top 40 receivers by catchable targets per game. Downs did have that injury to start the year, so maybe there was a little bit of like, okay, we don't have that much chemistry together. Then Downs kind of like got going middle of the season. He did have some pretty good games with Richardson, though. He had 4 109 and 1 with that game against the Texans.
Right.
He had a good game against the Jets too, kind of beating their man coverage underneath. So there were some like small sample stuff there with Richardson and Downs. The Colts last year just kind of, I think we all can safely say, kind of bungled the situation with Richardson, like, kind of in and out on him at the same time. Like the leash just hasn't been long. And I think they're kind of probably going to do the same thing this year, it seems like, with Daniel Jones. So, worst case scenario is like, I think at this point, Richardson's going to start week 1. They'll give him like, the opening month. And then if he, kind of continues this downward trend where he can't complete passes, then we'll see Daniel Jones. And I know, Dan, you're like, scarred from Daniel Jones. I get it, but like, Malik Neighbors led the entire freaking NFL in catchable targets per game last year. Like, the upside is not huge, but you're taking Downs in a range where like round 9, round 10, like all the peripheral stats look great for him. Maybe Richardson takes a small step forward this year. I think he's clearly the number 1 receiver though by first read target share in their games together. Like Downs, like E3rd, Pittman, Tyler Warren he's a good prospect, but like, I've seen him mentioned in a similar vein to Colston Loveland, and like it's just, to me, it's not close. Like Loveland's metrics were better at much younger ages, 19, 20 years old. Like he was on par with Brock Bowers. Like just like it's crazy. I think Jacob mentioned this. Like his numbers were like eerily similar to Brock Bowers, and Tyler Warren's a little bit older of a prospect. He's a good player, gives them like kind of a functional tight end that they have not had, but I'm not seeing Tyler Warren as like this like massive target earner out of the gates.
I love that take, especially about the age adjusted production there with Loveland and Warren. I will push back a little bit on the Jones thing. I'm just curious, is that catchable ball? It's a volume stat, I assume, correct?
Yeah. So we chart just simply like, are you, if you're prime Calvin Johnson, your prime Megatron, could you put your hands on the ball? Mm-hmm. And that's kind of how we, chart catchable targets. I have the stat not in front of me. I think Downs was like top 5 or top 6, Ryan, with Joe Flacco. Doesn't that sound right? Something like that. Like he was at the top of the league in catchable targets per game with Flacco, like, outside the top 40 receivers with Richardson. So it's not great, but super talented player. Like I said, if Richardson gets just slightly better, a little bit better, Downs will probably be all right.
Yeah,
It's also one of those
definitely-
things where, like, I think Anthony Richardson sometimes, like, I know he's the most inaccurate guy, like close to the line of scrimmage and stuff, but the actual completion percentage isn't as miserable as you think. I think, like, behind the line, he was still around 90%. Like, within 5 yards, he's still around 70%. So it's bad. And yeah, you can look at the clips of him just sailing one. And, like, it looks worse than most quarterbacks. But again, even the 32nd ranked quarterback in terms of like near low ADOT kind of completion rate is still generally pretty high.
Yeah, it's just
Agreed.
processing with him, man. Like
Yep.
he last year was just like throw it deep. If it's not there, I'm still throwing it deep. Like we can get him to freaking take a check down. That would be great. Like get to your second read would be awesome.
He hit that Pierce throw on the second drive, and he's just like, all right, let's do it again and again.
Yeah, dude,
Weird
he's
to
got a
me.
freaking howitzer, no doubt about it. But like,
he hasn't played a lot of NFL and he hasn't processed a lot of things. It's just odd to me because they had Flacco in there who has over his last 17 games thrown over 4,700 passing yards and 32 TDs. And the reason he does this because he's still got the arm talent and is more importantly a good processor, seen a lot, knows how to process things pre to post snap, and they just passed up on him for Jones, who's like a horrific processor. So I just don't I don't understand where they're going with this. Like with Jones, it's like he was a horrible processor his whole career. Dable came in, he's like, if your first read isn't there, stop locking onto it and just run through the B gap. And then defenses adjusted to that, and there was just like no solution for the last 2 years. So I don't know what they assume they're going to get out of that and how to fix that type of processing. But they basically have two players in here who can't process. At least haven't proven it yet at the quarterback, at the NFL level at quarterback. So it scares me a little bit as I look forward to this wide receiver core, just getting excited about guys like Downs, who are very exciting individually as a player. But we'll see. He's definitely a popular sleeper. And thank you guys all for joining the show today. This was excellent. Another great episode on Sleepers Week. And for everyone else listening, please do us a favor. Hit that like button if you haven't already. Leave us a comment in the chat. It looks like the chat is actually giving the W today to Ian. They said you did the best in the sleeper draft. That is worth a lot to everyone involved here today, but especially us here, Jacob and I, because we're trying to build this show. And we really appreciate your support and building out a community. So thank you so much. Have a great rest of your week, and we will talk to you soon.